Jiminy Crickets.
Hi,
buddy.
Won't get old. Can't get old.
What's happening?
Also, for everyone's knowledge, Riff Raff put a new song out last week.
Why?
Because he's Riff Raff and he can literally do whatever he wants. Do you know how he released his new song? Yes, this is the What If podcast, and we're opening with Riff Raff Goss.
I'm Spencer. That's Ryan. We're here to talk about aliens.
But also Riff Raff.
I thought he was like wrestling or something now. Is he still rapping in?
I don't know if I would call it rapping in. The way he chose to drop his new song, I'm a big fan of. He decided to drop the new music video on World Star Hip Hop, their YouTube
that's still
channel.
Around, huh?
To big time.
On their YouTube channel?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, they have a YouTube channel where like it is World Star Hip Hop videos, but it's just like rap videos with different artists.
Okay.
So he's got a song called These Eyes, and it's like a trancey club track where he sings. And it's pretty outrageous.
It sounds like it.
Speaking of recommending things, while we're recommending things, we've been in a habit of recommending things at the top of episodes.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to. You got a podcast?
Not a podcast, but it's a documentary that we won't talk about on the show because it's not really like. I mean, it's super substantial, but there's not. It's the Apollo 11 documentary. Have you seen the Apollo 11 documentary?
I haven't, but I want to because I'm a fan of the dude who did the score for it, and I heard it's pretty lit.
It's fucking incredible. Like, absolutely incredible. All the footage has been remastered and recolored, and there's no narrator, so they only tell the story of it using actual audio and news clips and,
that sounds potentially cool.
Houston to cockpit, like, transmissions back and forth. And they show you where some of the actual cameras were set up inside and outside of the actual lander. It's one of the most fascinating documentaries I've ever seen because I feel like you see so much of it in just in contemporary society at this point. It's just sort of infected its way into a lot of different things. But the depth to which it goes is so wild. And like with all of the remastering and the recoloring, it makes it look like, you know, the people on the beach watching this thing take off were filmed basically yesterday. So highly recommend it. It's just called Apollo 11. You can rent it on Prime or buy it on Prime if you're so inclined. But yeah, fucking awesome. Go do that with your free times.
We have some voicemails. We haven't played voicemails on this one in a while, I feel like.
Oh, I'm nervous.
Well,
612-246-4614 if you want to leave us a voicemail. And you can put pretty much literally anything in there and we'll probably listen to it, or we'll at least read it because we get transcriptions of them.
I'm going to play this one because Google translated the first line as "Hello, must worry boys."
It's probably my sweary boys, but I like must worry boys.
We are boys who must worry.
We do. We're inclined to do that.
Here we go.
Hello, Muswary boys.
Yep.
It's Tucker from Iowa City again.
Hi, Tucker.
Just calling to, I'd just share something that you might think is fucking stupid funny. Just looked up a series of pictures made of, you know, that whole Baby Yoda thing.
Yeah.
Is that from the new Disney Plus Star Wars show? Is that what's going on there?
The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
It's not actually a Baby Yoda, though.
Okay.
I mean, it's a baby of the same species that Yoda is, but it is not Yoda as a baby.
Or Yoda's baby.
It is also not Yoda's baby, because this happens before the Star Wars series does.
Okay.
I believe.
I don't know.
Pretty sure.
What's his people called?
No idea.
Okay.
Him as a bunch of Disney princesses. And the reason I'm sharing this with you guys is because
I'm into it already.
I warn you against it.
Nope,
I
literally
got
Googling it right now.
to the point where they showed Baby Yoda as Ariel from The Little Mermaid, complete with flowing red hair, and all I could think was, I'm disturbed. I don't know why I decided to do this. So, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Anyway,
This is
as
weird
always,
as
love
shit.
you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. later.
Thanks.
I'm disturbed. I don't know why I decided to do this.
Thanks, pal. Love you too. He's right. These are pretty fucking weird. Somebody did them all like in Disney animation style, but just made them Baby Yoda. So there's Snow White with an apple in her mouth looking like Baby Yoda. It's pretty good.
It's cute.
It's pretty good.
Somebody, well, I don't know. This has the words Voldemort and Bigfoot in it, so I think we got to play this one.
On brand.
Yo, it's your boy Beeman. I listen to you guys basically all the time when I'm working around the house.
Sick.
Walking the dog like I am now, or walking on my way to work. But all right, I'm going to bring up the Voldemort of the show. I'm going to bring out your boy Copface, okay?
Okay.
Listen.
Yo.
Calling Copface the Voldemort of the show is the new thing that we're going to do.
Yep.
He who shall not be named.
It's Bigfoot. He thinks it's fairies. I'm not fucking with you. He thinks it's fairies. Look up on Wikipedia, Irish fairies. Look up the hosts and shit. I'm telling you, all of it lines up. If your boy thinks it's fucking fairies. All right, have a good day. Peace.
All right, have a good day. Peace, Beeman.
So again, Google Translate undefeated or whatever, not translate. Google Voice undefeated in its transcription.
It kind of is.
Your boy thinks he's fucking berries.
Can't put it past him.
Mm-hmm.
Can't put it past him.
Yeah, there's definitely some fairy folk vibes to some of the stories that Politis chooses.
Yeah, well, and
he's hinted at that in the past.
He also has, like, we've talked about this a couple times before when we've talked about he who shall not be named, but like, I think he intentionally plays into the tropes of multiple different paranormal things to allow for all of the open doors possible so that you can draw your own conclusions and find him to be righter in your own mind, depending on what you think.
He has either outright said or at least heavily implied that he outright said it's portals at one point.
Right.
He has heavily implied for years that it's Bigfoot. He has implied to lesser degrees that it's fairies or UFOs.
Right.
Or
a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Or a combination of many of them, I guess.
But yeah, just chalk another one up to that dude is a deceptive ass.
A Goomba.
Yeah.
A big Goomba who yelled in my face once.
Oh, speaking of fairies, I finished Hellier.
Uh-oh.
I'll save it for the Patreon because I've been talking about that over there and not here.
Did you know you're only getting half of the What If podcast you could be listening to? If you go to patreon.com/whatifpodcast, you can get a second episode every week and access to a back catalog of over 100 episodes. And we're going to talk about
whenever
Hellier
I mention the Patreon
week.
And then you jump into an ad for it, it makes me feel like an ass for promoting it.
No, I am.
I know.
Just
but
let that be me.
It makes it sound like I'm setting you up.
You did.
To promote it.
You did.
But that's never what
you told me that. You were like, hey, man, I'm going to set you up. That's what you said.
Did we play the one? Oh, yeah. We need this one. This one addresses us as Larry Boys, as if we're both named Larry.
I mean,
I wish we were.
Is this like our?
I wish we were enticers.
Is this our pseudonym of our pseudonym? Is this our? This is our Clark Kent.
Yes.
Or Superman? I don't know.
Larry Boys. It's Debbie
shit.
from Seattle.
Hi,
I'm
Devin.
on my way to see Chuck Taylor.
Debbie,
my bad.
It's Debbie from Seattle. I'm on my way to see Chuck Taylor, and you know what? I wouldn't be going to this if it weren't for you guys.
Aw.
Love is real, and you prove it.
Hell yeah.
Hell fucking yeah, Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
And Chuck.
Fuck yeah, Chuck.
There was talk.
Chuck is in LA this weekend. Go see him.
There was talk in the Facebook group that made me so happy where somebody posted a photo of them being at the Seattle show for Chuck Tingle, and then someone else was like, hey, I'm here too, you want to meet up?
Yeah.
And I was like, the fact that multiple different people in our listenership are finding each other through the podcast and through the Facebook group and through physical events is just such a delightful, magical joining of streams, and it makes me very happy.
If anyone wants to join streams at the Minneapolis Chuck Tingle live podcast, I've purchased myself a couple of tickets for it.
When's
and
he
I will be
coming?
there. Let's see. Chuck Tingle, Minneapolis, because we say our Google searches out loud. January 10th at the Mixed Blood Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Tight.
My Friend Chuck live podcast. It appears that there are still tickets available.
I really want him to
But that
DM
place is
for
really
us.
small, so you should buy them.
It's super small. Isn't it like 60 people?
I don't know if it's that small, but it's not big.
It's like, it can't be more than 100, can it?
I don't know the capacity of it, but it's not big.
Yeah, it's not big. I want him to DM for us real bad.
DM.
Dungeon Master.
Oh, well, it's TM.
Oh, right, because it's a Tingle Master.
Yeah.
My bad, Chuck. Don't hate me, Chuck.
Yeah, you're not going to convince him with that
My
sort of
calling is-
mislabeling.
We've only played once. That's why my terminology's off. It's gotta be
true.
further embedded.
I mean, we could hit him up.
You can TM too.
I'd
Maybe-
like to play. I've never played.
I'd rather have him play and you TM because I feel like his character
that's
would be
a lot of pressure.
His character would be awesome.
That's a lot of pressure.
I mean,
I'm nervous.
meet your heroes, bro.
No,
Meet your
I mean,
heroes.
yeah,
You already have.
I already know he's cool, but that seems like a lot. You
into
want
it.
to talk about UFOs?
UFO. Have we? I'm trying.
UFOnauts?
Have we talked UFOnauts?
Yeah, the people in the UFOs.
We do have to talk about the UFOnauts.
Mm-hmm.
They show up in this one in a way they don't normally show up.
Maybe.
Well, they're part of the story.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's tell the story, eh?
Hey, let's do it. Speaking of
we're going to 1967 in Canada.
we're going to Canada.
We're going.
If you think I'm not doing it the whole night, you don't know what you're talking about.
We just can't. We can't do any stories that aren't from the Midwest, I guess.
I'm talking about Canada, and I'm going to talk about it just like this, eh?
So we're going to specifically Falcon Lake in Manitoba, about 80 miles east of Winnipeg, or
Yes.
about 7 hours northwest of us right now.
Get in the car.
We could be there by tomorrow morning.
We're gonna do it. No, you can't do it. You've got to do other things tomorrow morning. It's
true.
Like be on an airplane.
It's true.
Maybe you can move your flight to fly out of Winnipeg, and we'll drive straight there right now.
Hell yeah.
And then I'll drop you at the Winnipeg airport.
So there's a guy named Steph. I think it's Stefan
Yeah,
because it's abbreviated to Steph at times.
I think it's Stefan too. And if I call him Stefan, the only thing I'll think about is the Bill Hader SNL bit where he's.
Well, it's definitely not Stefan because there's no O in his name.
Yeah, but you can pronounce that A as an ah. Stefan.
Well, it's an E, so that's where you goofed.
Well, it's STFAN is what I'm saying. So
it's PHEN. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I have it as STEFAN in my notes.
Fuck.
Well, pick your poison, kids.
Well, I'm going by the way that he wrote it in his book, so I'm assuming that's probably safe.
Probably more correct.
Stefan Michalak is a mechanic who lives in Winnipeg, and on a Friday after work, he decides to go out to Falcon Lake to do some amateur prospecting. Hunting for some minerals. Hopefully silver, ideally.
I have him referred to as a rock hound, which is the thing I did not know was a thing.
Hell yeah.
But apparently that's a thing that people call themselves.
Cool. So he takes the bus out to this area about 80 miles east on a Friday after work. He's going to stay there for the weekend at a motel near Falcon Lake and then go look for minerals.
Not necessarily super important at this point in the story, but maybe slightly more important later is Mr. Michalak is a Polish immigrant who moved to Canada in 1947.
Yes.
After the Second World War, or I guess in the midst of the Second World War.
Yes.
As a way to get out of Poland and get out of the war. And his family then followed him later, I believe in the 50s at some point, to meet up and rejoin as a family, also escaping from the war.
Yeah. So he gets there Friday evening, spends the night at a motel, and then at 5:30 the following morning, Saturday the 20th of May, 1967, he heads out. And he's on foot. He hikes into this wooded area, and at about 9:30 finds a spot that he thinks is interesting because there's a line of quartz running through this like rocky area. So there's like a rocky forest floor with this big vein of quartz running down it.
This is a dumb question. Can you see quartz from the surface?
In this case, yes, you could.
So you could just straight up see quartz coming
Yes.
out of the ground.
Yes. So there are
Bursting with quartz.
There's a book called When They Appeared, Falcon Lake, 1967, The Inside Story of a Close Encounter.
Dum, dum, dum.
Written by Stefan's son, but they also include Stefan's original account in the book, which he wrote in Polish and then was translated to English. But there are a lot of photos in this book, and one of them is of the area
vein.
where he stopped and was chipping away at quartz, and you can see that it is exposed at the surface.
Yeah, I guess. So I think I saw a different version of that photo, but I guess my question was like, is this a thing? Because like, did he open that up and then found that there was quartz underneath, and that's why it is open, or is it something where you just like walking through the woods and you see something shiny and then you're like, oh,
I think he just saw it, and that's why he decided to stop there.
Got it.
Yeah.
I also didn't know this either, but apparently part of the reason these rockhound cats like quartz in general is because quartz veins can lead to other precious metals. Like something about the processes that create quartz is friendly to the creation of other precious metals in nature.
Yeah,
or
quartz is not particularly valuable, correct?
I don't know. Maybe in big chunks it is more valuable. I mean, no, not many people are out here buying like quartz necklaces for their loved ones for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly valuable.
We don't
know much.
We don't know nearly enough about crystals for being a weird shit show.
No, there are multiple pieces of quartz on this desk right now, and I couldn't tell you.
We don't know shit about it.
Okay, so at about 9:30, he stops to chip away at some quartz that he sees for an hour or two, and then stops at about 11:30 to eat lunch because he got off to an early ass start.
He's like, look, I found my quartz. I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
I'm taking an early break.
At about 12:15, as he's finishing his lunch, he sees a flock of geese nearby that's been startled suddenly. Mm-hmm. And he looks over there, and he sees up in the air above this flock of geese 2 cigar-shaped objects in the sky. And as he watches, they descend, and they're glowing as they descend.
Sweet.
And as they get closer, he notices that they're more oval-shaped than cigar-shaped.
Sure.
At a distance, I guess they looked, he was looking like edge on at a disc-shaped craft.
Right. So it looks elongated if you're seeing it from the side.
Yeah. And he watches these 2 things sort of glow and change colors as they get closer to him. And one of them lands about 160 feet, he estimates, away from him on top of a large rock.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do we have an idea of, like, I know you talked about, it's like 70 miles west of Winnipeg. Right? Isn't that what you said? 70 miles
80
west?
miles east.
80 miles east, my bad.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea how rural, like, I know he's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but is it like very in the middle of nowhere, or is it like, because one thing I couldn't surmise
it's also
was
52 years ago.
Yeah.
So I would guess, if you're 80 miles outside of Winnipeg, and it's not like in the direction of another big city, I don't think.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out
Canadian geography, especially for the cities that are that close to us, is not what it should be.
Not great.
Let's see. So if you're going east, there is nothing for quite a ways.
Okay. My only thought was whether or not there was a possibility, and I didn't find this anywhere when I was reading on it, but I know you read more than I did. I wanted to know if, like, this seems like a big enough thing that someone would have seen something else if there were more people out there. But if this is as rural as it is...
He was very much isolated because he also hiked for 3 to 4 hours into just like straight up wilderness.
Yeah, I was watching this video that said there's a company out in that area now that does horseback rides to the place where this incident happened, and even a horseback ride takes like an hour, and some of it's up like rocky, craggy hills, and like it's not easily accessible.
Yeah, it was pretty isolated.
I'm just thinking like two crafts there for kind of a long time, descending, middle of the day. Like that's ripe circumstances for like, fuck, there's got to be somebody else out there who saw this, right?
Well, I mean, later on, there were reports of other people who saw the same thing at the same day in the same place.
Oh, that was my
I just
question,
hadn't
I
gotten
guess.
to that part of the story yet.
All right, let's get
But
there.
yes, let's describe what he saw first.
Let's do it.
So he sees this craft, one of the two craft land about 160 feet away on top of a rock, and the other craft stays up in the air. He says 15 feet, which seems really low to me. Like that would be, there are plenty of trees that are more than 15 feet tall.
15 feet over the other craft?
He says 15 feet above him.
Wait, sorry, I'm confused now.
There are two UFOs.
One landed.
One lands about 160 feet away from him.
Yes.
The other UFO stays in the air above him, but he says 15 feet up in the air, which is really low.
Yeah, that's really close.
Right? And would be below any sort of tree line in the area, unless he's in like a totally exposed spot.
Yeah.
But
like
even
a
then,
field.
that's like, you could almost jump and touch that. Like that's really low.
Yeah. He also said once it was close to him, he felt like it was about 35 feet across.
If a 35-foot wide
Right.
thing is hovering 15 feet above you.
Right.
I mean, I guess maybe he's saying 15 feet above his head, not necessarily 15 feet off the ground, but still.
20 feet in the air.
Yeah. Like that's a small tree.
Yeah.
It just seems, these estimates just seem odd to me, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Also,
Sure.
if a thing lands 160 feet away from you and it's 30 feet wide, that thing is essentially right next to you.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like that is whatever. Anyway, so he's very close to two UFOs.
Yeah. I mean,
Is the point of all this.
You're a half a football field away from the other one.
Yeah. So this other one stays in the air. The one that does not land stays in the air about 15 feet above him for, he estimates, 3 minutes, then lifts back up and ascended quickly until he couldn't see it anymore. Like it broke through some clouds and he lost sight of it.
Speaking of estimates, 3 minutes when you're having an experience like
That's
this
so long.
is such a long time.
Yeah.
Such a long time.
3
to just
minutes
be,
of a UFO hovering above your head and another one sitting on the ground next to you.
and you just chilled? You
Well,
didn't
I
try to
mean,
run
what
out.
would you do?
I mean, I guess I would have tried to run out from under it. Like if that thing is descending,
Well, it's not. I mean, one of them did, but the other one appears stationary.
No, but
I
that's
don't
what I'm
know.
saying is like
not moving might be your best bet at that point, and hoping that it,
on some predator shit.
or just like
sees
until you
motion.
have some better idea of what is happening. It's not the worst idea.
I don't know.
Let the UFOs make the first move.
I would slowly back away. I would Homer Simpson my ass into the bushes away from that thing.
So one of them speeds off very quickly, but silently, he says. And then he focuses his attention back to the one that's still there
Sure.
on the ground, 160 feet away.
As you would probably do.
Yeah. He said as it was sitting on the ground, it was changing color from initially it was red when it landed to sort of a grayish color to sort of like a glowing orangish gold color. And he sees on top of it an opening, sort of like a porthole or some sort of
A basketball
door
hoop.
on top of this thing. And coming out of this opening is a really bright purple light that he said, even, it was noon when this happened.
Yeah.
In the summer, it's bright. And looking at this purple light coming out of the top of this thing was so bright that it was painful to look at it for more than a couple seconds.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. In the middle of the day.
Right.
He said that the craft gave off heat and a strong sulfur smell. So I don't exactly know if he's saying from 160 feet away he could feel heat coming off of it, or he noticed this as he got closer to it, because he decided that he was going to go get closer to it and see what was going on.
As you don't do.
Didn't work out great for him.
As
Yeah.
Spencer would do and Ryan wouldn't do.
Exactly. As he got closer, he also noticed that the craft was making a sound, and it was sort of like a soft mechanical humming or buzzing sound, like an idling sort of mechanical sound.
It's purring like a kitty.
He gets a little closer and stops to make a sketch of this thing because he has a notebook and a pencil with him.
You're hounding rocks, you got to draw your rock maps.
Yeah, or, I don't know, take notes of some kind. It seems reasonable.
Sure.
He did not have a camera with him, unfortunately, which also seems reasonable. So he stops to draw this thing, and there are photos in the book or scans of these sketches in the book. And there's some notes on it too that unfortunately are not in English, so I couldn't tell you what they say.
Yeah.
It turns out his English was not great and that he still mostly spoke Polish, but also like 7 other languages. So he draws kind of your typical saucer-shaped UFO. It's a circle, maybe an oval. It's got an elongated part at the top, and at the bottom it looks sort of like a spinning top. It's got on the bottom half of it, so it's divided around the middle, like sort of a seam. On the bottom half of it, there are some, he referred to them as like exhaust vents. They look like rectangular grates, maybe of some kind.
Look like a couple big cheese graters embedded in the back of it.
And then on the top, there's this opening that the light is coming out of.
I just realized that it looks like this is in multiple language because some of this is in English, but it looks like some of it isn't. Like this says fast closing exit.
Oh, okay.
Pointing at that like door, and then I can also see something rotation as if it was like rotating counterclockwise, but then there's other stuff that appears to not be in English.
Okay. So his first thought when he gets a little bit closer and starts marking down the details of this thing is that it might be some sort of military craft.
Reasonable.
But he thought it was odd that there were no markings on it because any military craft he had seen in the past had some sort of, you got a flag, you got a number, you got something on there to designate what this thing is. And this had nothing.
I also saw he had also contemplated, like, is this a NASA thing? This is right around space race time. So presuming, like, is it possible that the U.S. has a lander prototype that's landing over here instead of over there? Like, maybe it's something like that.
I mean, how far from the border is... I mean, Winnipeg is only another, what?
Couple 2-3 hours.
Maybe 200 miles from the border.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much due east of there.
Yeah, So
he's not that far from the U.S. border.
No.
A couple 100 miles at the most, maybe.
Particularly if you're talking about something like a space program where you're thinking like...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
these things could be way up there and traveling far distances and all that stuff.
In space terms, a margin of error of a couple 100 miles is fairly minor, I would think.
Nothing.
So anyway, this thing has no markings on it. He gets within about, he estimates 60 feet of the thing, and he hears voices coming from inside of it.
Yes. The UFOnauts. This is what I meant. This is where they made an appearance.
He first shouted to them in English, asking if they needed help, because he thought maybe this thing was in trouble, whatever it was.
What did he call them?
I didn't write down the actual quote.
He called them Yankee boys because he thought it was American, either soldiers or space people.
Hell yeah.
He said,
American space people? Put it on the list.
American space people. Oh, man. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever said, and I'm so proud of it. Yeah. He said something to the effect of, hey, Yankee boys, you need some help in there.
So they didn't respond. When he got no response, he tried again in Russian, then German, then Italian, then French, and then Ukrainian.
Steph.
Never tried his native language, by the way.
Let's go.
Maybe they were flying down to meet him because he spoke Polish.
Oh, I have
he never tried.
In this CBC article I have, it says he tried in Polish, but maybe not.
According to this, so I'm retelling his own account because I figured that would probably be the most, well, I don't know if accurate is the right word necessarily.
The most direct?
Yeah. The original account, I guess.
Yeah. When did the book itself come out?
Oh, it was pretty... Well, so this book that I'm reading this from came out 2019.
2019?
So his son wrote a book about his experience but the first section of the book is Steph's original account. So I don't know for sure when that was published.
Got it.
But I think it was like 69 or 70. It was not super long after.
Got
but
it.
he also wrote it in Polish, and then it got translated to English.
Got it.
So I'm not super sure about that.
Got it.
Anyway, they didn't respond to him in any of the languages that he shouted out to. So he keeps moving closer to this thing.
Sure.
He gets all the way up next to it and climbs on top of the thing.
Bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for him.
And crawls over to this opening on top of it where this light is coming out of, and he sticks his head in there. God damn it.
I knocked on my chair and I woke up the dog. Whoops. Sorry, Marcy. Oh boy, I really got him.
You got him good. He gets scared easily when he's sleeping.
Well,
so anyway, he sticks his head down inside this UFO that's blasting out this impossibly bright beam of purple light.
Yeah.
He just sticks his face right in there.
It's so bright you literally can't even look at it. And he was like, fuck it, I'm going in.
Face first.
He's like that the meme of when our fucking president was staring at the eclipse.
Oh.
You know, it's like,
don't do that to Steve.
I'm just saying. It's not the brightest move.
That's rude.
It's not the brightest move. It is the brightest light.
So he looks around in there somehow, and he mostly sees a bunch of bright flashing lights. And
you don't say.
He pulls his head back out because this was not a very productive thing for him to have done.
Ouch, 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 ouch.
And he notices as he's pulling his head out of this opening that the walls of this craft are super thick. And he guesses that they're about 20 inches thick.
How can you tell that when you're not inside something?
Well, he was.
But like, was he inside it, or was this like a divot?
So I'm imagining like a door basically on top of this thing.
And he like dropped down
like
into it?
On a tank, how you would get in and out of a tank.
Yeah.
Except it's open already.
Yeah.
And so he just sticks his head down in there. And I think what he's saying is the distance between the outer edge of this thing and the inside edge is a foot and 8 inches.
I see. It's like sticking your head through a manhole cover and seeing how deep it is between like the top of the street and the inside of the...
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is like, that's a pretty far way to just stick your head down in. Like he'd have to sort of lower himself in a little bit.
Yeah. You're hanging on by your belly to go down there.
Right. Also, that could just be like, I don't know. That could be a lot of things. That doesn't mean it's all solid material.
Well, right. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like that could just be a curved piece of metal that goes down. Like you don't know that it's solid through.
No, you don't.
But whatever.
Also, it could be open inside there and you're running cables or pipes or all manner of things.
I mean, I know it's a hypothetical UFO in this situation, but I feel like anything with 2 foot thick metal like walls isn't flying anywhere very quimay
Depends on how you're flying.
Our understanding of physics, but
well, I mean, based on our understanding of physics, UFOs don't work at all.
That's true.
We may have to apply different rules.
True.
Anyway, so he can't keep his head in there for very long because it's really bright, and he pulls his head back out. And when he does, this opening slides shut. So he can no longer look inside, and there's no longer a bright purple light blasting out.
He almost got his head fell off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm imagining like a sliding pocket door kind of situation.
Yeah,
yeah, or like the Enterprise doors.
That shit was like, get out of my belly, Steve.
Yeah, well,
you're in my belly, Steve, and I don't like it.
So the outside of this craft was totally smooth, no like seams or fasteners or joints or anything on it.
What if it just took off while he was on it?
Well, it almost did.
He did not consider that.
He might have been
possibility.
better off, honestly, than what happened. So it's very smooth. It's metallic. It's super hot, which he said it was hot enough to burn his glove as he touched it.
Okay, so this is another thing I don't understand.
But he was just crawling around on top of it.
Exactly. There are photos of a glove that have a burned, like index finger, thumb, and sort of like middle finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
That very much looks like direct heat was applied to it because it's very like centralized.
There are lots of ways to burn stuff, but yes.
I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying it doesn't look like someone started a glove on fire. It looks like heat
touched something
direct
very
heat
hot.
got pressed in that space. But if that's true, how are you even remotely walking or crawling or laying or doing any of the things?
It's going to burn through your clothes to your skin.
Or was it hot in one place but not in other places?
To give our guy the benefit of the doubt, I'm thinking maybe because the way he drew it, these like exhaust heat
cheese graters
are the hot cheese graters are on the bottom half of this craft.
Yes.
And maybe the top half is not as hot.
Okay.
So he felt this thing emitting heat, but it's mostly from one area. And maybe like the rest of the craft is warm, but if you touch this one part, that's the exhaust and that's going to be super hot.
Sure. Like your tailpipe on your car would be hot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Versus, placing your hand on the hood, it's going to be warm.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Or maybe as it was sitting there, it cooled down. Like that's also a thing car engines do. Like,
well, if you put your hand on it and it burned you first, you're not then going to climb on top of it.
Right. Unless you're like continuing to temp check as you walk around this thing or wait and explore it.
Also, if the bottom of it is that hot, how did he climb on top? There's some details we're missing, but
sure.
Whatever. So anyway, he gets off of this thing because it suddenly leans forward and starts to take off.
Oh, geez.
So it's as if whoever is inside of this thing or whatever is piloting this thing notices, oh shit, there's a guy sticking his head in the door. Close the door. Let's get out of here.
Run like hell.
So he's now standing on the ground next to this thing as it takes off. And as it does, it releases a sudden burst of heat that hits Steph like squarely in the chest.
In the face.
So he gets blasted in the chest with this
alien
steam,
alien cheese grater,
whatever this heat is. And it's so hot that his shirt instantly catches on fire.
You hate to see it. You really do.
So he's now wearing a flaming shirt that he takes off and throws on the ground.
And it burned at him.
Yeah, it burned his chest pretty badly because, his shirt was on fire.
As you do.
There was an extreme amount of heat being applied directly to his person.
Yes.
He's standing there on fire and he watches this thing quickly raise up into the sky and disappear just as the other one had several minutes prior. As soon as this happens and this thing disappears, he sort of like takes stock of his situation, realizes he's no longer on fire, but he's pretty fucked up. And he's starting to feel very sick.
Uh-oh.
So he was nauseous, his head hurt, and he was sweating. He then threw up and he began to feel very weak and realized that he needed to get his ass out of the woods as quickly as possible because he was a 3 to 4 hour hike from the nearest help.
Sounds a lot like a hangover to me, I'm just saying.
Literally being on fire?
No, all of the symptoms. All of the symptoms.
Barfing, headache, nausea, sweating?
Yes.
Yeah.
General weakness. Sounds a lot like a party.
Spontaneous combustion?
Yeah. Now,
your blood alcohol content is so high that you're literally flammable.
Your pores are like little mini Bic lighters.
Yeah. He was looking at something through a magnifying glass and just set his sweat on fire.
I mean, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, like this one.
One of the things, well, I guess maybe we should finish the story, the whole story.
So, yeah, the rest of the developments for this day are that he, with great difficulty, stumbles his ass back to civilization through the woods, gets back to his motel where he calls his wife and his son. He has a college-age son who agrees to come pick him up at the bus station because he had taken the bus there from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
He has to wait 4 hours for the next bus that's going back to Winnipeg because it's a Saturday afternoon. And I would assume that this is not a bus that runs very often, going 80 miles out of the city to the middle of nowhere.
I thought I saw somewhere that he flagged down a Royal Canadian mounted police, or not mounted police, one of the FP. I can't remember what the acronym is when they're not mounted on a horse. Royal Canadian something police, whatever. That I heard he flagged down one of those on his way out of the woods and told this guy the story of what had just happened.
He tried to and was not offered help, he claims.
As in, like, I told him to help me and they were like, you crazy, we're out of here?
Yeah, or like thought he was a drunk. But like, regardless of why, this dude was wandering shirtless through the woods, puking everywhere.
You'd think...
Talking about UFOs.
You're fine.
Right. Like the guy's obviously...
Hey, keep walking that way. We've got bigger fish to fry.
Like what? Like literally fish to fry?
Or a bigger moose to catch, eh?
Like however he got himself to be in this state, he obviously needs help.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether he got blasted in the face by a UFO or whether he was just blackout, like the guy needs some help.
Yeah.
Anyway, he gets back to his motel, calls his family, his son agrees to come pick him up. He waits for 4 hours, takes a bus back to Winnipeg, where his son meets him and takes him to the hospital. He finally gets to the hospital at about 10:15 on Saturday night.
Yep.
He's treated for the burns, given a sedative, and sent home to rest. He did not tell the doctor at the time what had actually happened to him. He claims because his English is not very good and the doctor's English was not very good, but that was the only language they had in common.
Mm-hmm.
So he thought that he would have sounded potentially even crazier than that story already is.
Right.
By trying to explain this in his second language to someone in their second language.
Yeah, because all of the nuance and detail would be lost, and then you're gonna get dismissed.
At that point, he was more concerned with being treated and getting home than he was with telling a stranger about how he saw some UFOs.
Yeah, touche.
Convenient also, but like whatever.
Yeah.
He went on to tell this story plenty, so
yeah,
let's not doubt him just yet. I guess that is the extent of the story on the day that it happened.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to interject?
Well, I want to call him into question, but I'm not sure when.
I mean, the rest of this story goes on for a while in terms of like follow up and on some ongoing health issues and treatment for those health issues. And, we can get to that stuff later, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that now too if we want to tell the whole shebang bang, and then I can poke holes towards the end.
I'll go through it quickly because I want to leave us some time to
discuss,
have fun with the story.
Yeah.
So he gets home. He talks to over the next few days a variety of press. First, someone from the Winnipeg Tribune. Then eventually people from APRO, which was I think it stands for Aerial Phenomena Research Organization.
Okay.
They studied UFOs and weird things at the time.
Sure.
The University of Colorado, which in the 60s was doing their Condon report on UFOs, sort of a follow-up to Blue Book in some ways.
Yep.
It was an Air Force sponsored thing. The BBC, the CBC, and some other local papers.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah. He also speaks with Royal Canadian Mounted Police and Royal Canadian Air Force officers who came to his home to interview him and asked him questions about what his home life was like and what he was doing out in the woods by himself that day.
Sure.
He went back to his own doctor and a couple other doctors on several occasions to do testing and blood work because he thought that the burns he suffered could have been the result of radiation, not just heat, or that he had been exposed to high levels of radiation at the time that he was burned.
Which I'm imagining he put together based on the fact that he immediately started feeling things like nausea and vomiting and headache and weakness and other things where like you take a burn, but you're not just like, ow, that hurts really bad. It's like, ow, that hurts really bad. And also my whole shit's fucked up.
Right. And was for a few days. It wasn't until like middle of the next week that he started improving.
Didn't he end up in Rochester at the Mayo Clinic at some point too for complications?
Months later, but yeah. So he had some ongoing issues after his initial recovery of like a rash and welts in the area of this burn on his chest that would come and go like months later, almost like an allergic reaction, but in the same location as his initial burn. So he went to the Mayo Clinic in July of 1968, so more than a full year later, because he was still having issues. They concluded that he had been burned initially by some sort of superheated steam or gas of some kind.
Yeah.
And whatever was in that gas that burned him he had some like severe allergic reaction to. And that it actually, because he was also burned by the heat, it got under his skin and it like over time had recurring allergic reactions to this chemical because it was still in his body.
Sure.
They were not able to identify what it was, and it seemed like more of a speculation, I guess, than a diagnosis of any kind.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had ongoing health issues for at least a year. That was 14 months later. He was still seeking treatment at Mayo that he paid for himself and drove, 8-9 hours one way for treatment. He stayed there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's some serious shit.
And paid hundreds of dollars in the 60s for out of pocket for medical treatment.
Right.
Also, there were some investigations. He went back to the site several times. First, he tried to find it with someone from the University of Colorado named Dr. Roy Craig and John Freed from Life magazine. They tried to find the location and were unable to because it was so dense. And at that time of year, vegetation was changing very quickly, which changes the landscape and points of reference very quickly.
Right.
Because everything is growing in for the first time.
Right.
So that was June 4th that he went back the first time and couldn't find it. On the 23rd of June, he went again and he went twice and was unable to find it. Once with University of Colorado guy and Life magazine guy. Went back a second time with mounted police and Air Force officers and was unable to find it again, even flying over the site by helicopter. The Air Force and police seemed very invested in whatever was going on.
Yeah, responsive.
Yeah, coming out to his house, going out to the site with him, like dedicating resources to trying to find this site.
Right. Which is, I don't know. It either lends credence to the story itself, or it just lends credence to how kind the Canadian people are, and they're really gonna just,
or that they were testing something in the area at the time, and he may have seen something he wasn't supposed to, or
right, and they were trying to get to the bottom of what he knows.
Yeah,
I did forget one minor detail of the story. I forgot that he says he brought welder's goggles with him for the rock hunt, and that's how he looked inside the super bright ship.
Welder's goggles?
Yeah,
I thought he just had like safety goggles.
No, he had like hardcore welder's goggles.
Why would you have welder's goggles for chipping at rocks?
I don't know. He's a mechanic. He said he had a.
I can't really. Ryan's showing me a photo that appears to be clear in the eyeball area, though. No.
Yeah,
but
they
tinted. Those look insane.
Yeah, they look like old scuba diver headgear kind of.
Okay, that's not what I was imagining from his telling of it. I thought he was wearing just like safety glasses so he wouldn't get little bits of rock in his eyes.
No, I think they're like straight up welder's goggles, like you can look at bright shiny light and keep focus on it.
But he also says they couldn't keep his head in there for very long because it was too bright.
I mean, it might have been a little bit of both, like easier than nothing, but
made it possible,
still
but
not great. Yeah.
So he went back to try and find the site a second time with authorities and couldn't. On the 23rd of June, he went again and actually found it. And he claims to have found an outline where the ship had landed on the rock, the remains of his shirt that he had torn off when it started on fire, and his tape measure that he had brought with him and left when he stumbled his ass out of the woods. He picked up those items to bring back with him, as well as taking samples of the rock and dirt in the area.
Yes.
And on his way out, he also noticed that tree branches in the vicinity of this landing spot had withered and died.
Okay.
branches that may have potentially come into contact with this craft.
Yes.
So on June 23rd, he went by himself. On July 2nd, he went back with mounted police officers and found the spot again and took photographs and tested the soil for radiation, which they found small amounts of.
Yep.
He went back one last time in September and claimed that there was no vegetation now growing within a 50-foot radius of the landing site. I couldn't find photos of that. Unfortunately, I don't know if you came across any.
No, I saw the photos of the area, but everything looked like there was still some version of like grass and rock kind of mixed together before there was a tree line.
September 30th is also like that far north, pretty late in the season.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, you would definitely be losing a lot of tree growth by then.
Right.
Most leaves, I think, would probably be down by the end of September, that far north.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'm not exactly sure how you would. And it looked like the ground was pretty rocky versus planty.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, you can
Grassy.
see some trees, but it's definitely mostly like.
He was in a little clearing to begin with.
Right. Well,
So-
which is for what it's worth, like that's also why I'm a little confused about the description of like there was no vegetation there. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, if
Would
it's
there have been
it's a
anyway?
rocky clearing, like what else would it be?
Right.
Like what else would you expect?
You picked that spot because there wasn't, because you were looking for rocks.
Exactly. Which is, yeah.
And there was enough room for a 30-foot wide thing to land.
Right.
Anyway, you were going to call some things into question?
Well,
Or
many things, bro, to be honest.
yeah, go for it.
So, okay. I feel like normally, and I started like when I was watching and listening and reading about this, I started being like, this is fucking dope. This is like one of the most documented. There's like, oh, we have soil samples that have radiation in them. We've got like physical, this guy got burned by a craft with like there are literally photos of his burned stomach, really. It's like below his nipples and above his belly button. There's like a grid pattern of burns on his stomach.
They're like small, I don't know.
Look like a quarter, maybe.
Quarter-sized dot burns all over his chest and stomach.
Yeah. And so there's a great amount of, I would say, evidence in a way that a lot of the stuff we talk about doesn't have. It's just like, yeah, they came back and the shit was really weird and they didn't know how to talk about it, but they told the story and that was the extent of the story. Mm-hmm. This is like the burn and the shirt and the glove. And I think there was also a hat that got burned because he turned after he got burned. He turned.
Burn and turn.
I think he got burned and he tried to turn away from it. And then he said the back of his hat caught some of the heat as well. So originally when I was like, this is fucking legit. This is way more legit than like Roswell, where it's all kind of just mucky and there's like some shit in the field and
like years later.
Yeah. But the more that I read into it, the more that I was just like, it doesn't pass the sniff test for a couple reasons. And there's actually one small detail where it doesn't pass the sniff test for me. And I feel like it's a minor detail, but it also says a lot for me. So I'm going to show Spencer a picture. These are very easily findable online of this is where
it's the photo you were just describing of him with his shirt open and the burn marks on his stomach.
Yeah. He's in the hospital for where his burn is or whatever.
Yep.
When they go back and find his shirt, this is what the burn shirt looks like. And look where the grid pattern of the burn is.
I'm having a hard time figuring out what I'm seeing. Is that like a sleeveless?
This is like a shirt.
Undershirt?
Yep.
Okay. So
I wear one of these every single day.
So yeah,
these are the armholes.
Yep.
This is your neck. It looks like it was burned through on one side.
So let me just describe the two pictures. So will you go back to the one of him for a second with the burn marks?
I will.
So he's laying down in bed. He's got a button-up shirt, unbuttoned, exposing his chest and stomach. And the burn marks, this grid pattern of burn marks is like sort of in the middle of his stomach, like between like from his belly button up to like the bottom of his chest.
Probably
like up to like his sternum, just below his nipples.
Yeah, like 4 inches below his nipples.
Yep. Okay, now go back to the A shirt. So the burn pattern on this A shirt starts at like the neck of the shirt in the center and only goes down maybe, what is that? Maybe 4 or 5 inches.
I think the thing that tells me the most about it is the grid pattern ends about 2 to 3 inches below the armpit.
Basically at the armpit.
It's in a completely different place than the burns were on his on his body.
Yeah, by like
6 to 8 inches.
Yeah,
maybe more.
Yeah, it's significantly off. It also on the shirt looks to cover a significantly smaller area
than the ones on his stomach.
It's entirely contained between the 2 armholes of an A shirt, which is maybe only like 8 inches across to begin with, and it's only about half of that. So it looks like it's maybe 4 inches, maybe 5 inches square, basically.
Right. Also,
and on the photo of him in bed, it covers like most of his stomach.
Right. Also, how did you get severe burn marks on the skin of your stomach?
But it didn't burn through the shirt.
But it didn't burn through the shirt. I can still see the grid pattern in most of the dots of the square on the shirt. I can still see the grid pattern without actual burn through holes. They're just like sooty round marks where the grid pattern would be.
Right. So like the neckline of the shirt is actually charred.
And so is like the sides and the back a little bit.
And then this pattern, yeah, it's just like darker than the rest of the shirt, but it's not burned through.
Right.
Can you pass it over here? I just want to make sure I'm like looking at this the way I think I'm looking at it. So this is, has it like ripped in the back so it's laid out flat?
It appears to be that it like burned through fully on one side. So it was like...
And is this the back or the front of the shirt that we're looking at? We're assuming it's the front?
We're assuming it's the front.
I'm just devil's advocate for a second. If that's the back of the shirt...
Yes.
Then the front has burned all the way through.
So you're saying, did he catch it in the front? It blasted through and burnt him. He turned around when he was leaving and got a less...
got just a little bit.
Because he was on his way away from it.
Yeah.
Fair take on that.
That's not the way I read it. Of the shirt that is.
That's a fair take on that. It's not the way I read it, but that's a fair take on that.
Because otherwise that would mean he got burned on the chest, but then somehow the back of the shirt has burned totally through.
Right.
So I would guess that we're looking at the back of that shirt.
Sure. It still feels a little bit like someone tried to make a burn shirt look like a burn pattern on a guy's stomach.
That I can agree with. However,
that
based on the photo, one side of that shirt has been burned all the way through.
Yes, for sure. And I think that's a good way to be able to break that apart. I just I'm
with you that it's a little bit fishy.
It was also
I don't think it's as bad as you were initially implying.
That's fair. They also, so that detail, though, is mixed in with a couple, which is that he went back himself to go find that shirt with a buddy.
And it's the only time, like the other times he went to the site where he either didn't find it, the first 2 times he was with other people.
Yep.
And then after he went back by himself and found it and found this stuff, then he went back 2 other times with people.
Right.
So it was the only time he went by himself is also the time that he found all this stuff.
Right. He also, they said that when they found the soil samples that had radiation in them, they found those on their own as well, and then brought them back and had them in a box with all the other stuff that they found that they sent for like review. So I guess I'm saying that to say like, on the surface, it looks really good, but then when you dig a little bit deeper into it, you get into that same issue of like, yeah, there were a lot of people involved, but like, did they have geologists come take their own core samples and get those radiation readings? Or did he send a chunk of dirt to them that they were like, yep, there's some elevated levels of radiation here?
I couldn't find the actual results of that testing either to be like, how much radiation and where and... Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The radiation can exist, especially in small amounts, in lots of places for lots of reasons that are not alien spacecraft.
Right. There's also this element of the police officer that he encountered on the way back from his incident or whatever. That guy describes Stefan in like not a very great light based on their interaction. They said that he was like red, kind of bleary eyed, that he smelled like booze, and that he had ash on him with like a coat over his like naked body. And they said it looked like the ash had been rubbed in. Now, granted, if you had been burned, like obviously you would rub to like, get anything off of it. So maybe that would be why.
Put it out. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, and yes, they're probably writing that through, a lens of like, we just encountered this sort of goofy dude in the woods. This is not right. But if he did smell like booze and he was bleary eyed and like, I don't know, it just seems like that's a little bit more.
It's what I mean? Weird. It definitely casts it in a different light. At the same time, why tell that story? And then how did he actually get those burns on his stomach/chest?
Totally.
So he got burned like rather severely, and then did also have ongoing complications for at least a year afterwards.
Right.
Like something definitely happened to him to the point where one of the best hospitals in the world is saying like, yeah, you got burned by something and you have an ongoing allergic reaction as a result of it.
Right.
So something happened to him.
Yeah.
What would happen that you would describe in this way instead of saying what actually happened? Like what would be,
I mean,
what would lead to that? What would be the motivation to tell this story in this way?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is it's the, what would he stand to gain from creating a story like this?
Which is like in some ways a dangerous way to look at the story, because it doesn't mean that it happened the way he said it happened. I guess all I'm saying is like something strange seems to have happened out there. And if not UFOs, which I agree, I'm in no way like saying, yes, this dude absolutely stuck his head into a UFO.
Yeah.
But then we still have a mystery of like, well, what did happen to him? Because something definitely happened to him. It's not like he just hallucinated or is totally making up a story. Yeah. Something weird happened to him out there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the flip side of that coin would or could be, and like I'm definitely being like a skeptical devil's advocate here, but just like run with me on this train of thought. You're a rock prospector who's a mechanic and you're getting into like slightly older age. You make a find of like a huge vein of quartz that is like, it's not gold, but it may lead to other minerals or
this could potentially be a valuable location
you'd want to guard. What's a good way of, in your mind at the time, what's a good way of making sure people don't want to go here because it's scary or dangerous, or you might get fucked with or hurt or have like a fucked up experience? Maybe you create a story about a beast or a monster.
But he didn't just create a story. He got was very ill for a long time afterwards.
So the illness part is definitely like the realest part of the evidence to me. Cause like, to be honest, if you're a mechanic, it's not hard for you to drill a bunch of holes in a thing and heat it up over a fire and lay it on your stomach to burn yourself and go, I got burned.
That's crazy though.
I mean, is it though? Have crazier things have happened with people trying to like faux out stories. People have invented evidence to make things like their version of story.
But then what? Okay. So even if you burn yourself intentionally, which I think is highly unlikely, then also he's
giving himself radiation poisoning. Yeah, I know.
And he lost 6 pounds in a day from barfing his brains out.
Yeah, he said he didn't eat,
and then a year later he's still having allergic reactions to something.
No, I know. I hear you. Like
that doesn't happen from burning yourself.
No, I hear you. I think that part too is definitely like The least hoaxable part of it is his ongoing illness that happened. And also, like, they did find pieces of radioactive metal in the area after the fact that they were like, oh, did the radioactive metal come from the craft, or was it metal that was just like there that was maybe made radioactive by its, proximity to the craft or whatever it was. I don't know. I feel like you have to play out that mindset of, like, if somebody found a gold mine and they were in a rush for an idea to be like, how could I potentially keep myself?
Also, he took other people to the spot.
Eventually, yeah.
But I mean, within like weeks.
Sure. Well, he took them to a spot.
Well, okay.
I'm just saying, I'm being a devil's advocate skeptic here. But like, yeah, I mean, I agree with you that all
I'm just
things.
Saying if your motivation is to keep people out of that area in general, all he's doing is calling attention to it and showing people how to get there.
Well, sure, but again, I mean, like, what area? Do we know that this was the area? We know that there's courts there, but like,
I mean, we know that like people saw him in the vicinity that day.
Yeah.
Like he was definitely out there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think, I don't know. To me, that seems unlikely.
Sure. I get it.
And just like stupid on his part. And then as far as we know, he never profited off of finding minerals anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's more likely that he may have actually encountered a test flight of something.
Yeah.
Because there was so much interest from the Air Force, specifically the Canadian Air Force, that he may have physically encountered something that he was not supposed to have seen and then was also injured by it.
Yep.
To him, it's a UFO because it was flying and he doesn't know what it is and wasn't able to identify it, and it looked like a saucer.
Right.
But it may have been something terrestrial that he did actually physically see and interact with and got burned by.
Right.
I mean, also like a spaceship that flies across the universe, that has like an exhaust port.
Yeah.
That sounds very much like 60s technology to me, not like interplanetary technology.
Right. Something like, did we or they or someone at some point put a nuclear engine inside of something?
It sounds like just a combustion engine, honestly.
Sure, but could be somehow nuclear combustion of some kind. Also, what?
Is nuclear combustion a thing?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to double check my...
What are you Googling?
Nuclear combustion.
Oh, okay.
It is nuclear... No, nuclear combustion's for sure a thing. Yeah. Yeah. The rapid consumption of stellar material by a thermonuclear fusion front propagating subsonically or supersonically, releasing large amounts of energy that are observable as astrophysical flashes.
Astrophysical flashes. That doesn't sound like a Powers craft.
Put it on the list.
That sounds like a space thing.
No, it's like...
I think you're talking about stars, bruv.
No, I'm not. I'm very much not. Nuclear power. It's like all like nuclear
what
combustion.
Didn't you say astrophysical flashes? What does that mean?
Bruv. I don't know what to tell you here.
Right.
Like nuclear fission versus
own
combustion, inexpensive machines and cheap fuel. This is from atomicinsights.com.
Ooh, that sounds like a pretty lit website.
It does sound like a pretty lit. The point I'm trying to make is like, also, would that explain for if the walls of it were really thick? Is that because you had to put a pilot in that thing, and if it was nuclear of some kind, they were trying to keep those people from dying while they were flying it?
Yeah,
like that. This to me seems like of all of the improbable things, the most probable, because I don't think he saw a fucking UFO. I think there's a chance that he hoaxed it, but it would have been hard to hoax with all the illness and the follow-up, and to your point, to really what end.
One thing about the nuclear angle, he personally was tested for radiation and tested negative. Like he was not actually suffering from radiation poisoning.
But then how is he so sick like that?
I don't know, but it wasn't. I mean, they ran blood work on him the next day.
And he would have for sure shown signs of it if he was. Yeah.
So whatever it was, it seemed to be more allergic than radiation based. I mean, if you had a severe allergic reaction to something, you could have a headache and be barfing.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know. I'm going to trust Mayo on that one over my dumb speculation. But
Sure.
as far as we know from any of the actual medical side of things, he was not exposed to high levels of radiation.
Yeah.
That was his hypothesis that was proved false in all the ways that he tested it.
Right. There is this whole thing of shortly after the event came out, he put out a book called My Encounter with the UFO.
Okay.
And people were like, well, he never got rich off this whole thing, but he did write a book and I think try to get legs with it.
Okay.
So that was another piece of it where I was like, I mean, granted, if I had an experience like this and I could make a buck off it, I'd probably find a way to too, but also
pay those medical bills somehow.
Right. But also that as well seems like if you really wanted to hoax something, could you poison yourself in a certain way or could you burn yourself in a certain way, tell a story?
I mean, yes.
It's
far pretty extreme.
It does, but I mean, people do extreme things every day, you know? I don't know.
Do, man.
What'd you say?
Do the do.
Do the do, man. Did you see the cover of his book? It's got his burnt glove on it.
Oh, that's not a well-designed cover.
No, it's not. It's not at all. It's the best part about it is it's a horizontal photo that they just turned vertical and then put text on it for the cover of the book, which is not super helpful.
Yeah.
Is that your bet too? That Steve ran into a thing he wasn't supposed to see?
It seems the most likely to me.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not exactly sure what else it could be.
This is one of the most unsatisfying ones because there's a lot of small points to it and a lot of build up to it, but there's no more outcome or
there's a lot of physical evidence too, which you don't often get, but none of it's particularly
useful or
worthwhile. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah, it doesn't take you to a conclusion where you're oh, of course it's this instead.
Right. Like a burned glove.
Yeah.
Has thousands of explanations, 99.9% of which are common.
I bet a guy with welder's goggles and who is a mechanic has probably burnt a couple gloves in his day.
That's the biggest mystery of all. Why did he bring welding goggles to the woods? We gotta do a part 2 on welding goggles.
Is it because he knew he was going to stick his head in a big bright fucking purple bowl?
So you're saying he's psychic?
He's a psychic hoaxer, maybe? I don't know.
All right, friends.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all for listening to the show. It's been great to have you here. It is the What If Podcast. If you want to go get some dope swag, buy somebody a Christmas present or a Hanukkah present. It's shop.whatifpodcast.com. We got hats and shirts and hoodies and posters, and you could buy a shout out. Oh, that'd be a fun Christmas present to give somebody. We sell shout outs on the show.
Merry Christmas, you dicks.
Oh, I'll totally wish one of your loved ones a happy holidays or a Merry Christmas. You could do that at shop.whatifpodcast.com. Emails are hi at whatifpodcast.com. We read them all. If you want some extra episodes, it's patreon.com/whatifpodcast. Thanks for all the nice iTunes reviews lately. You can leave us one of those if your heart feels like it. And we love you. We'll see you next week. Okay, bye.
They shouldn't dignify hate. Sucker wanna sit in my place, so they get in my way. Ain't no use in getting irate. Carry on and lift of my weight. Get to carry on and fly safe. What I mean, I'm playing high stakes. Saying what I'm saying till I'm gray in my face. I came to be great. I'm all about grace. For whom the bell tolls, for when the bow breaks. Talking about talk, I'm talking about space. Gate for the bookcase, bait me the